Data Innovator was your thing, right? Now, what's next for Jerusha,
It feels weird. It also feels really like I'm being pushed out of a comfort zone, but it's also a little bit exciting. I believe that there are many great ideators that are sitting in places we have not yet explored. I was like, go look at two different contexts. Go out of your comfort zone and see what it's like. Africa has like a growing youth population and a huge proportion of orphaned and vulnerable children, and they won't have the same experience as us. And I think for me, the vision is that I want to use that kind of privilege that has been passed on. And so in my vision, I do want to continue to contribute to the continent. I want to look at how can I, and not maybe it's not one-to-one. It's not like I'm going to be able to train every individual, but how can I be strategic? If I had all the resources and all the capacity to do so, I would want to. Hi everyone, I'm Jerusha Govender, a creative and a data-driven professional working towards making a huge impact on the African continent in social development. So on social media, you might have seen me hinting towards some changes, and this is part of those changes and sharing with you a bit of my story, my journey, and also keen to hear from you and hear from potential collaborators and partners in the future. So today I'm speaking to my first co-podcaster, Sanjay Govender, who is one of my business development advisors, also my best friend, and he happens to be my husband as well. Hi, Sanjay.
I'm Sanjay, the husband.
Welcome. Are you feeling a bit weird?
This is definitely out of my comfort zone.
Okay, that's cool. I like pushing people out of the comfort zone. That's how we grow.
You do.
I like pushing people a little bit.
How do you feel about this new venture? Let's talk there. Let's start with Jerusha now, leaving her baby of about 8 years and saying, I'm trying something new and I'm letting go. How difficult is that?
Yeah, it feels weird. It also feels really like I'm being pushed out of a comfort zone. But it's also a little bit exciting. I think it's time. You've been part of this journey on 8 years. You know what the ups and downs have been like. And I feel like I've made a big contribution. And I know that the other people I've been working with are still going to make their contribution. But it's time for me to do something new. I think everyone gets to a point where you need to shake it up a bit. And in our family, we want to shake it up because we know like our family dynamic is changing and we need to think about things differently. So yeah, it feels strange because it's both scary and exciting at the same time, like a mishmash of feelings.
What is the one emotion you feel right now leaving? Like we've discussed this. What is the one feeling that you have right now? Because it's a couple of days, right? Until it's actually the last day.
Well, so the deep feeling is a little bit of loss.
Okay.
It's the deep feeling of loss, of like giving your heart and soul into something, and now it won't be there it will be there for a little bit, but with others, but when I wake up, I'm not going to be like, oh, what's on the agenda for my role in DI? But I think that's also okay. I feel like every new beginning, you kind of leave something behind and starting something completely fresh. And being an innovator, you have to deal with the hard in order to really do good.
Talking about the beginning, you've changed lots of things quite a bit, right? So you did a bachelor in bioscience, bachelor in bioscience. Then you went into honors in pharmacology, and then you went into masters of public health. What made the change? And then public development managers as well. You got a master's in that. But what was the change from pharmacology to public health?
Yeah, well, I think it was. I don't think I didn't have it all figured out. So I guess that changing things was part of me figuring it out, like what's the right path. But I did know when I started my studies, like I knew in the beginning that I wanted to work in development. I knew that I wanted to contribute to making a change in communities, in my country, on the continent. And I felt like I'm smart enough to do something about it, and I just need to find a starting point. And in the beginning, the starting point felt like it felt right to go into science, because science was like discovery, experimentation. Like I could discover things that could change perhaps healthcare for people on the continent. And that's why I ended with biochem and biotech, because biochem and biotech, as much as it's quite scientific and hardcore science, there's also an element of creativity and innovation, because it's around like, how do you take scientific discovery and experimentation and convert that, or make those like market solutions, make these like development solutions, and thinking about like the chain of events. But when I did that, I spent a lot of time in the lab. And at that time, I was like, I was experimenting a lot, but I was also catching on a bit of nonsense, like, because I had access to so many chemicals and things, and we weren't Googling, we were Yahooing. I could Yahoo different experiments. And there was a time when I didn't, I broke the rules really. Like, you were supposed to follow rules. You can't take certain chemicals in the kitchen, and you can't work with certain things. And I was like, you work quite late when you're doing experiments. Sometimes you have to run an experiment 24 hours. So you're there at like 8 o'clock. There's no one there. So Jerusha was being naughty, and she caused a mini explosion in the kitchen because you put the agar that you're not supposed to put in the microwave to kind of soften it. And I hurt myself. It wasn't a good thing. I got into trouble. And I think then I realized I'm not meant to be in a lab.
You wear the lab coat though.
Yeah, no, I still wear the lab. Yes. Actually, good point. Yes, I still have my lab coat, but I wear it to protect me from my paint. Cool. Yeah, that's true. And yeah, I think at that moment, I'm like, okay, you need to make a shift. Yes, you want to still work in the space. You still want to make a change. And, biochem, biotech, and drug design was like a potential way, but you're not meant for the lab. Look at how you can do this differently. And that's why I went into public health, because I'm like, okay, I can take my health expertise, but I can think about it more from a policy perspective, a people perspective. And that's why I went into public health. And in that journey, I was always kind of challenging the system, because even when I studied public health, one of my experiences was when I'm sitting and I'm learning about why a policy in Brazil doesn't work in South Africa and why the context is different. And I only knew Cape Town. I lived in, my life was Cape Town. And I'm like, I don't get it. I can't comprehend this. And that's when I traveled. I was like, okay, you need to go directly to where this reality is. And I worked really hard. I was like, you're going to make some money. You're going to save all your bursary money. You're going to buy only secondhand textbooks. You're going to walk to varsity if you have to. And I saved up a lot of money, and I used that money to go to Brazil and go on. I was like, go look at 2 different contexts. Go out of your comfort zone and see what it's like. And in Brazil, it was great. I went into Brazil. I enjoyed my time in Rio, but I also went into the favelas. In Ghana, I was in the main city in Accra, but I went into a village. I was like, I want to feel what it feels like. And I think those experiences then was also part of the path of realizing that the reality is real, and what textbooks were teaching you was not enough. And what needed to really shift these different inequities and the struggles I was observing in Cape Town.
That was when you were doing honors in pharmacology.
No.
That was masters, the first one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, that's right. It was, right?
Remember at the end, actually, that's when we started dating. So we started dating, and I was like, cool, this is great, but I'm leaving the country. Are you okay with it? So we just started dating. I'm like, guy, I'm going to go to Brazil and Ghana. Yes, I didn't see you for those 3 months. What was it?
No.
It was 3 months. And then I came back, but there was the experiences I was having while we were dating in long distance for that short time. And then I was like, okay, I'm still into this, and I want to work in a space where, I am solving like the deep problems, because the experiences people were having in a village was not just about, an individual. It was about like the policies. It was about like the data that informed how people decided who gets things
Does
that not.
that help you with your masters though? Did that experience did that help you with or not?
Did it help
Was
me
it
with my
just
masters?
just for you to go and see what's out there, or was it actually part of your masters?
It was not part of my masters, but I feel like it was part of my learning though, which was happening at the same time, because I did that at the end of my masters. So I was kind of finishing up, I was wrapping up my dissertation, and which was on a very different topic, because I did my dissertation on sexual cohesion amongst adolescents and the link to HIV risk. So it was kind of different, and that was happening. I feel that like enhanced my learning, because there was a lot of things I was never going to, like the textbooks like experience is very, very valuable. And I think that influenced like how I worked. Like once I entered that first job at TBH care, it gave me a lot of insight that when I'm going to go in there as a professional, I'm not going to do exactly what the checklist said. I needed to understand the communities I was working with. I needed to know that when I was in Atlantis, it's totally different to the experience in Kailicha, even though it's considered Cape Town. And people will be like, Cape Town, the environment is like that. So I think that's how it kind of influenced my learning and how I was as a professional.
You're not just smart, you're also creative, right? We know this. I mean, every single painting in our house is you or the kids, right? Or your brother. There's one day with your brother. Where did that come from? I mean, since I've known you, you've always painted. I mean, it's always been painting, actually. It's pretty much painting. There wasn't anything else that I can, since we met, it was always, where did the brushes come from? Where did that come from? Because that you apply in your work, right? So I think that's what makes you stand out as well, is that you apply the creativity in what you do. And I think that gives you, or that gives your clients a bit of a difference, right? Where did that come from? Like, and why apply it? Does it tie in to what you do?
Yeah, I'm like a proud creative. I feel like that's definitely part of my brand, creativity and innovation. That's just who I am. And I think the creative side came from an artistic creativity, because like I shared with you earlier on that actually my very first exposure to what art like was painting. So I think that's why it stuck with me. My dad he painted and he was really good at it. And he always had like this box, he had this box of paintbrushes that he didn't allow me to touch. So it always sticks with me. And I was like, I always want to have that. Like it just looked like this perfect box that you open and the paintbrushes and you create something on a piece of paper, and he would pack it away and go on with his usual day. And I always wanted to have like that experience, like of seeing it. I wanted to be the person sitting at the other side of the paper and open my own box and paint with it. And I mean, eventually I could do that. I could buy my own paintbrushes. I learned to paint at school. So I think from a very young age, I was exposed to what it meant to create with your hands, what it meant to think outside the box, because he made these pictures that were not fine art pictures, but they were different types of like abstract pieces. And so I spent a lot of time immersing myself in art and self-teaching, how can you make an abstract piece? Who are the different artists? What does it mean? And I think that immersion in painting and art showed me that like there's a lot more to art. It wasn't just about like the feeling of a paintbrush in your hand is one thing, but that many of these pieces they were conveying deep meaning, and the timing of it was important. Like if you were doing like a really absurd art piece in the early 1900s, that was innovation. That was somebody pushing the boundaries because you were going against what the norms were. And so I think that kind of thinking carries through in my work, because I'm a creative, but I'm also an analytical. I like to say I'm a multi-potentialite. I can switch from analyzing data to painting a picture to writing a piece. That's my kind of mix of creativity. And so because that artistic side was always with me, even in my analytical thinking, I feel like it was always trying to find each other. They were always trying to meet. And that's why I've kind of looked at how do I bring visualization? How do I allow people to see deeper messages in data the same way we look at art pieces? And sometimes it takes doing it in different ways. Maybe it's in a video, maybe it's going to be in an art piece, maybe it's in a dashboard. It happens to be in a dashboard in my work. But there are so many other ways. So I think that's how the creativity has come in. And even in complex problems, you also have to think differently. And I feel that has helped me work with funders, NGOs, and others to also think outside of the box, like take complex thinking and say, why is it this way? What is the deeper meaning or the deeper reason? Which really stems from art and creativity.
Do they know that you were a waitress?
Who's they?
The world.
The world does not know. No.
That's how we met, right?
Yes.
You waiter and waitress.
Waitrons.
Okay.
Do you want to share?
So you're still serving people, I suppose, in a different way.
That is also true. Yes.
Go with that.
Yes, servant leadership. That is what has led me to servant leadership. Being a waiter.
It is. Like Saddles. Shout out Saddles, Claremont. No longer there, eh?
Sanjay.
But I think we both come from, hard-working parent background. Our parents worked really hard to give us what they could and gave us values that we then took forward, right? And we've created something that, we are further than our parents were at that point now, and trying to install the same thing for our kids, right? But yeah, I think we're entrepreneurs, essentially, both of us. I think that's what gives us that drive and that push. And I think our conversations at home, it's always around how we can do things better, challenges that we have, opportunities that we see, and how to make a difference, right? That's what essentially what we're trying to do. Also, we want to give our kids, we want to give them a better footing than we've had, although our parents, worked really hard to give us what they could, and I think we're doing the same. Yep. So yeah, I think that's a similarity between us. I think it also makes it's challenging, but it's exciting having two entrepreneurial minds in the house, right? Just because now our kids are that way. Our daughter's a little hustler, right? 12 years old. Every opportunity to make money, she's definitely trying, right? So yeah. So where does this go? Like, where do you want to be? Like, what's the vision? Where's all of this going? Because now, DI, that journey it's coming to an end. That was an 8-year journey. It was tough, right? You put in all the hours, all the weekends. You really gave yourself to this business, create it. Now what? What's next?
Well, I think the vision, the same way you say that, like our families and ourselves, like there's always been somebody working hard for kind of the greater good. And first, the greater good was like us as the kids. And then the greater good was our kids and maybe others at our extended family. And I think I still see that, like, for me, the vision is that the greater good is much bigger. I want to continue to contribute the way we have, like our families have, to us and our development. But many other families don't have that. Africa has like a growing youth population and a huge proportion of orphaned and vulnerable children or youth-led households, and they won't have the same experience as us. I think we had that privilege of like having families that are working, had access to jobs firstly, and then also had access to education to actually, grow in their employment. And I think for me, the vision is that I want to use that kind of privilege that has been passed on. I mean, when it started out generations back, our families didn't always have that. And it's each time they were giving back, they were improving. And I think in the next stage of improvement, and hopefully even with our kids, as they are taking on the entrepreneurial mindset and creativity, is that we then we are paying it forward, but like way forward. And so in my vision, I do want to continue to contribute to the continent. Like it's like without a doubt, I don't want to just work for or contribute to a single household. I feel like I can do that. We can do that, but we are capable of so much more. And so I think some of the challenges, particularly knowing that in the next decade, there's still going to be a high unemployment rate. Yet I have this knowledge about entrepreneurship. I have this knowledge about data, and I wanna make sure I can harness that and transfer that in another way. I want to look at how can I, and not maybe it's not one-to-one. It's not like I'm going to be able to train every individual, but how can I be strategic? How can I support those large entities or people that are in places of power or in places of strategy that we can really make an impact? Because I worry that if I focus my contribution on my family, it will be great. We will have kids that are successful, but they will live in an Africa where it's still inequitable. They will still be exposed to infrastructure and systems that are not working in their favor because everyone's focus is kind of so narrow. And I want my focus to be broad. I want my focus to be big. And I think that it has a knock-on effect on our family. If we can contribute to a better Africa, a better cohort of youth that are thriving on the continent, our kids will also live in a space where they can do better.
What are some of the things that you have done for the African continent? Like, what are you, I mean, to be honest, usually I don't truly understand what you actually do. There's just so much technical jargon. I'm just smiling away. We'll try to keep up with it. It's been 10 years and I'm still struggling. What are some of the things that you have done, like that has been impactful for Africa?
Yeah. What have I done? Lots of things. I mean, the first thing that I'm quite proud of is like the work that we did at Data Innovators with establishing the Data Artistry program, because that was like firstly around really being intentional about helping like teach the skills that we know. Like I don't feel like I ever need to be the only person that's a creative data person. I feel like others can do this. And even if it means that they're going to take my job, they must do that. And so the Data Artistry program was around building those skills and kind of across the board, young professionals, some were students, and also even more technical professionals. So I feel that has really made a mark in shifting, particularly in South Africa and development side. People have started talking about how do I think about data differently. And just in the MND, the monitoring, evaluation, and the data space, because I hear people saying that in the conferences we attend and what we are conversing about, I feel that is a contribution already, because that change in mindset is one step forward into people using data differently. But then there's also been other initiatives. I think a lot of the work we've done with foundations and being a strategic advisor to various foundations has helped them also do scalable work differently. And I think that's another example of where my contribution is not just direct. It's not like I'm going to give you R1 and you have R1 worth of good. But if I kind of support in tipping the, when you tip the dominoes, if you tip the dominoes in the right way, there's kind of a knock-on effect. And it's not just about that first domino, but like everyone that is in line. And I think that's kind of what I've been doing, like particularly advising in the foundations. The work we've done with like the National Department of Planning and M&D was also quite cool, because for the first time, let me not say the first time, it was quite a unique experience where we could bring government officials together and run a design workshop. And to this day, that was like about 5 years ago, we still have people telling us, Jerusha, we've never done that ever again. And that was amazing because we had different departments in the same room talking about, like, trying to solve together. So I feel like those kind of moments of strategically advising, bringing people together, building skills is what I feel I've done. That's my contribution. I've done this, and that's my kind of footprint and legacy, and things that I want to do more of, but also want to do it more strategic, more focused, and almost find those other partners that are maybe like Jerusha or like-minded that I can support to do the same, because I feel it's like a multiplier effect. If we had many people doing that, I think we'd really be shifting the lever on what development could look like.
So what's next for you?
Well, definitely there's a break. I think I want to take an intentional pause and reflect, because the next is going to be a big next. And it's not clear exactly what it is. And I think part of me putting out, like, having these conversations with a podcast and sharing other content is about, like, engaging with people to see what is changing in the ecosystem, see where there are natural connections, and which sounds a little bit vague, but it's also it's kind of part of an adventure. So, but intentionally, I am hoping that in the next few months, I identify partners that I want to continue working with. But it's not fully ironed out what that looks like. I just know that in the next, I will be working with those that have a similar vision to me to make a change on the African continent, and people that are wanting to bring data, art, and tech together. Those are the people I'm going to be working with. They don't know me yet, and I don't know them yet.
That's okay. If I was hiring you, why would I choose you?
It's like a really interview question now, Sanjay.
No, but for real, like, because I mean, I'm never in, like, I don't actually know, right? I mean, I know what you do, and I kind of, and 10 years, I picked up a few things along the way. But why you?
Can I bounce it back to you?
Okay.
You know me in a different level.
Oh.
Why would you say somebody should?
I think because you were not because you're smart. We know that, right? You got lots of degrees, but I think you're passionate. I think that is why I would choose you, because you care, and that's why I would hire you.
You think that would be enough?
Well, I mean, your credentials, what you've done, that's all there. But if there was a deciding factor, I would say that you're really passionate and you want to make a difference. And that's why I would hire you. With your CV here, and I got all the details, but I would hire you on that.
Thank you.
I'd hire you for the person you are.
Appreciate that. How much are you paying me? Joking.
Checks, take cash only. So
you'll pay me in kind.
Listen to this podcast. Cash.
But more by passion, I agree. I'm like a hardcore driver. It can be a little bit nutty at sometimes, because people are like, I can be so passionate about something, I'm willing to bulldoze through walls because for me, it's that serious. And I mean, just like ensuring that we are reducing unemployment and ensuring the livelihoods of people, it is that serious that you must be bulldozing. And I think that's what I bring. And many people need that kind of person on a team. But I also get shit done. I'm the type of person that's like, if you give me a thing, it's going to be done. And it's probably going to be done 110%. And I think my expertise shows that's who I am. But I bring people along with. So if I get shit done and I have a team, that team is going to be getting things done. Probably faster, better quality, because I have that kind of capacity to bring people along. But also, I mean, like we've heard, I've got a pretty good bunch of connections and friends, and I think that has worked very well in my favor and in many situations. Not in like a dodgy way, but when we need real advice, when you really need a strategic partner, I have many people I can phone or WhatsApp.
I think you've actually given pretty much all the ladies we know in our friends, in our circle, you've helped them with deployment somehow. Either you brought them on board in DI or as a consultant, or you've helped them joining a board, or so you. I mean, there's not one lady that I can think of that you haven't out of all our friends.
That's potentially true. I mean,
What about the men, Jerusha? You helping the men. They need help as well.
so no, men do need help, but you know this about me, that I am intentional about women empowerment, and we know that there's inequity across race and other groups, but the inequity is even greater for women. And so again, I will always open a door for another woman, because I know what it is, and there are things that are going to be a little bit easier for you just by virtue of Sanjay being in a suit and showing up that way. There are things that I know that when I show up, they're like, "Where's the boss?" And I'm like, "Nah, I am a." So that's why there are many moments where if there was an opportunity, I made it happen for somebody, because hopefully they do the same. It's again that multiplier. I open a door, you're going to open a door, and we keep going.
There's a question for me. What is actual data? Like, I get it. There's information. What are you actually doing with it? Like, I keep telling people ask me, what does Jerusha do? No, she's in monitoring and evaluation. They're like, what does that mean? I'm like, okay. She takes data and she tells stories with it. But then that's also confusing, because they're like, what's that about?
Yeah.
What is it actually? Like, what are you actually doing?
Ages later. He's trusting me. I could be like a hacker. So what I'm actually doing, I mean, okay, let's take it 10 steps backwards. If we think about just our everyday life, we you go about your day, make breakfast, look in the fridge, you're like, oh, I need to buy milk. You like, okay, what is on my schedule today? I need to do this. Okay, I need to make some payments. Like throughout the day, we are looking at pieces of info and making calls on things. Whether it is how much milk I have in the fridge and that is not enough for tomorrow, I need to make a purchase. Or, oh, I need to make a payment, but I see on my app that, if I make this payment, I'm not going to have enough for whatever, bread and milk next week. So everyone is usually engaging with some level of data. That is data. Do you have a lot? Do you have a little? And then the info is when you're like, okay, if I have a little, I need to action this. In my field, we are doing the same thing, but it's linked to more from a development perspective. Because in the same way, you need to make decisions about day-to-day actions based on information. In the development field, it's heavily dependent on, if we do something, there's a knock-on effect. The domino must fall and there must be a change. But in order to know that, okay, if I am going to do a training that is going to improve or reduce sexual risk behavior, for example, like if we have a problem that sexual risk behavior has a major effect on HIV prevalence, because if we see a high sexual risk behavior, then there's a likelihood of HIV spreading and so on. So in order to change that problem, I need to help people think about what that means. Like, what are the ways that you can use kind of prevention and care and so on. And those interventions are designed in a way where there are inputs. In order to do it, I need to train young people. I need to buy resources. I need to buy boxes of condoms and put them everywhere, whatever it takes, in order for me to see that sexual risk behavior is changing. And if that is changing, we should see a change on the number of cases of HIV. And that's just one example. This happens at scale, many things related to the environment, things related to education. So what I do is, when people are thinking about, these are the dominoes that must fall in order for us to ensure positive outcomes in this space. That requires data. Are we doing enough? Are we doing too little? Are we doing the right thing? So my work is around thinking what that is, because it's not it's not as kind of easy for us to grasp in the way that we every day walk to the fridge and like, I don't have enough milk. It does require us to think about actually what does it take to measure that people's behaviors are different? What does it take to measure that because I taught you this, it has caused this? And so the data we collect is those things. It's like, what did you do? What is changing? And in the data space, many fields are collecting data. That's just my field. Financial systems are collecting data about us, what we spend on, why we spend on it. And that's why we might get certain phone calls or what I'm following on Facebook or Twitter. That's a masses of data being collected in the same way because somebody wants to make a decision with that. So what I do is help figure out what data you collect and then how are you going to use it, to put it really simply. And but with that, we need to think very creatively around how you collect that data, which is where we think about what technology we need to use. Like, how do I get, if I need to know this thing worked and the person is sitting in Kuruman, do I need to walk there and ask the person, or are there opportunities to use technology, alternative means to get that information? And then when it comes to using it, not everyone wants to look at like a list of Jerusha said this, Sanjay said this. You have to package it in a way that I can be like, okay, this is what I need to do. There's not enough people attending our program. And that's where the creative side comes in. It's like looking at tech tools that allow us to package information, to visualize it. And those are some of the things. There are also levels of strategy around it, because it's not just about this kind of input to output, but if we think of it in a big scale, and we know there's masses of information that is being gathered and masses of ways we can think about it, you need to think very strategically and creatively around what are the systems that enable that. If a whole government needs to be looking across multiple departments, what would it take? What would it take for us to gather information? What's the technology needed? And I think this data space is really exploding, that there's a huge opportunity for others like me, but also young people that need to start thinking about how do we support others to think about those systems, think about data, because there are issues around what's the right technology, what's the infrastructure. If I'm in Kuruman and I don't have a cell phone tower there, how would I access data there? But also, if we know big businesses are collecting data about me, how do I know that my data is secure? That when they do collect it and use it, that it's safe, that they're not going to start selling it. And there are all of like these various questions and problems to solve around data that I find quite exciting. And I think these are opportunities for people to interrogate and make sure that we're doing data right. But in parallel, I think the other opportunity with data is that because we know that the AI field and data science field is like just exploding, it is creating opportunities for new employment. Some of them are advanced employment. It's not like that. Not every person is going to go get a data science degree and then get an opportunity in Ghana. It's not feasible given our current kind of education systems and the context we are living in. But I think the other opportunities that lie is that in the kind of the field of data, the person that is collecting information, that is capturing data, the person that is summarizing information for a small project, that doesn't have to be a data scientist. And I think there are gaps where you can train people to do those things that are going to support this big data ecosystem. And knowing that, again, we have this expanding youth population across the continent. Some of them don't have a full primary school education or have not matriculated, but they do have the competencies that you can upskill them to think about what it means to collect data, what it means to summarize information. And there's a huge kind of opportunity there, I think, to make sure that everyone benefits from this expansion in the data ecosystem and the field.
So if you had all the resources, all the funding, what would be your most exciting challenge to take on or project to do in Africa? Anyway.
So I believe that there are many great ideas or great ideators that are sitting in places we have not yet explored. And these are often not the people, like, it's not the data scientist. It may not be the doctor. It may not be. And if I had all the resources and all the capacity to do so, I would want to enable things for those individuals, because I think, going back to like my own journey, I feel that there were times where it was really challenging, because I feel like I started out as a grassroots innovator and had simple innovations, and have been able to scale some of those or introduce new thinking. And I feel there are many others that are sitting with amazing ideas that can solve the wicked problems we are dealing with. Like, why are we still struggling with education challenges in South Africa and other countries? We have major energy issues in South Africa. How can we kind of expand the thinking, the pool of thinkers, to almost like accelerate how we solve these? And if I had all the resources, I would want to really go out and identify, like find those individuals, mobilize them, and create kind of an enabling system and support structure to support those individuals or companies or teams to systematically test what they think may solve specific issues or challenges on the continent, and enable kind of access to funding and resources so that they can actually get those things kicked off. Because I think often the solutioning sits with us. We just haven't identified them yet. And there's a need to create opportunities and spaces for that to happen. Safe spaces for experimenting, because I think many of the spaces, there's an expectation for a very clear outcome. But if I was able to create a space where I'm giving you a space to experiment, and if there's no outcome, that then must at least be a learning, and there's a clear path for getting your solution or your innovation or your thinking to scale, and through that process, making sure that I am creating opportunities for young people, particularly young people. I think that would be one thing. I would also want to have like a really scaled intervention where I could invest in building the capacity of young people in like the data skills. So those things I spoke about, like being able to collect data, summarize data, and getting people that are either directly out of school or still in school, is something that I would want to invest on and strategically kind of build. So those are some of the areas. I think much of this is around thinking about my own journey and knowing that I want to continue to contribute to others on similar journeys, but also that in my next, I'm open to the partners and individuals, partners, organizations, collaborators that have a similar thinking. That this podcast is really part of reaching out to say that I have this experience and this vision, and I know there are others out there, and it's kind of a call to action to bring those, come together, reach out to me, because I feel that, it's as much as I could do a lot with those funds, I feel that it's really a collaborative thing. It's a partnership thing, that we can never really do things alone. So I think that's kind of my concluding point also, that's what I would do if I had all the funds and
Capacity. So I think I'm more excited for you now, because, your Data Innovator was your thing, right? You started, so much hours, worked late nights, early mornings, weekends, paid yourself last. It was never about the money for you with Data Innovators. It was about making a change, making a difference, making an impact, right? So I think I'm really excited for you. Because now, what's next for Jerusha? What are you gonna do next to make a difference? And I can't wait to see what you need to take 3 months off. That's definitely for sure. But I can't wait to see what you're gonna do next.
Thanks, Sanj. Thanks, love. But I just said love on a podcast.
Oh, love you too.
Okay, delete that bit. Well, thank you, Sanjay. Thank you for being part of the journey, because you were my supporter, my everything through the process. So as much as I can talk a lot about all of it, I mean, you backed me and you listened, even when it sounded like it was babble. And I think we need those people on such journeys. And thank you also for being part of being uncomfortable with me today and bringing a podcast. Awesome.
I've almost done it. It's almost over.
It's almost over. And also thank you to everyone else that's listened to my first podcast in the series. We will be sharing a few more in the upcoming podcast. I'm going to speak to some of my previous colleagues so you get to know what it's been like collaborating on projects in the data space and the development space, and also to a fellow thinker in the data and tech space so that we can continue to learn and share together. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please engage. You can like, you can comment, you can share it with other colleagues and friends. And we have a whole new website. So on the website, the podcast will be shared as well as blogs. And I'm open to meeting with fellow collaborators and partners. So you can go to the website, which is jerushagovernor.com, and book an appointment with me. Thank you. See you on the next one.